I want to talk about, we have so much to get through, but I want to kind of set the stage for where we're currently at, which is awaiting an Iranian counterattack that will likely be a joint attack comprising the three main elements of the axis of resistance, not just Iran, but Ansar Allah, the de facto government of Yemen, the Houthis, as well as Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. This could happen at any minute, or it could happen at an unexpected time, but it seems very, very likely to happen. But what's been happening inside Israel really set the stage for this moment. And I think, Aaron, we should start with the ProRpe riots that took place inside Israel. And I don't know if you want to comment before we get to this on just the irony of this happening, given what we've been going through at the Grayzone, all the attacks we've been facing for exposing the hoax of systemic rape by Hamas on October 7th.
Well, it's clear now, as it always has been from the start, what the point of these allegations of Hamas sexual violence on October 7th were about. They were about painting Hamas as this ghoulish entity that can't be negotiated with, that has to be eliminated. And by de facto, and by implication, all the Palestinians around them have to be eliminated too, because Hamas just can't exist because they were guilty, Israel said, of sexual violence on a systemic level on October 7th. As we pointed out from the start, it was a lie. There's not evidence for actually a single case of sexual assault on October 7th, let alone on a mass scale. And for questioning that propaganda, we were, dismissed as rape apologists and attacked and all that stuff like that. But really, it's not just about manufacturing consent for mass murder. This is also about projecting what Israel is about, because right now in Israel, we've seen riots this week of people demanding the right of Israeli forces to rape and sexually assault Palestinian prisoners. When some Israeli soldiers were detained for allegations of sexual assault and rape, the base where they were held, or the facility where they were held, was confronted by a mass of protesters demanding that they be freed. And this was at the same time the Israeli Knesset was having a debate on whether or not it's okay to sexually assault Palestinian prisoners. So all this is not just this allegation against Hamas was not just about manufacturing consent for the mass murder campaign in Gaza. It was a projection. It was Israel projecting onto its foes what it actually does out in the open and insists on the right to do. And it's just it underscores it's a sick society, which comes out of being founded on ethnic cleansing and occupation. To sustain, yourself as a colonizing force, you have to turn the people you're colonizing into subhumans, just as the Nazis did to the Jews. And when you do that, you can justify doing anything to them. And you're indignant when anybody dares question your right to do it. So that's what we're seeing unfold in Israel right now.
Yeah. We were witnessing the unraveling of a psychotic cult. And it took place, one of the pivotal moments that I think is leading not just away from a two-state solution or towards a one-state solution, but towards a no-state solution, was the riots at the Beit Lid military base. These are led by fanatical settlers. So, Israel, the military is the most revered institution in Israel. Israel is an army without as an army with a state. The army has always traditionally led the state. In the past, prior to Netanyahu, every leader had come out of the army. Yitzhak Rabin, Ehud Barak, all of the major figures were highly decorated officers. And now you have someone who's not really known for his military service, who's being controlled by the Kahanist Messianic right of Itamar Ben-Gvir, also someone who has very little distinction in the military. He's a lawyer for the most rabid, violent settlers. That's how he gained his distinction in Israel. And they are raiding military bases because the military, the Israeli military, under pressure from the International Criminal Court, and I would assume the Biden administration, wanted to demonstrate that it could regulate its own, that it could punish its own, and that the Biden administration could keep calling for Israeli investigations of Israeli war crimes in the face of clear, undeniable, documented beyond debate evidence that Israel's Force 100, a shadowy unit that controls the Sde Teman concentration camp that was set up for men kidnapped from Gaza after October 7th, had been conducting using rape, sexually assaulting male prisoners. It was leaking out into the New York Times, of course, not through front page features like their phony debunked screams before silence or screams without words feature, but it was featured in New York Times articles about electric rods being inserted in men being sodomized. And now you have a soldier from Force 100 who participated in the gang rape of a Palestinian prisoner. Israel arrested this soldier and several other Force 100 members, and they were basically broken out of this military base, which held a military court, by the followers of Itamar Ben-Gvir, but not just Ben-Gvir. Also, the Israeli justice minister called for their release. The Israeli minister after minister, down to Israel's president, Isaac Herzog from the Labor Party, who's supposed to be the nice, enlightened guy in Israel's government, has called for their prosecution to end. And what you're seeing here, what you're seeing in scenes like this, is really the future of Israel. It's the real Israel that will be in control after Netanyahu. I'm having trouble accessing one tweet which shows these riots, but anyone can just take a look at the riots that took place. Well, this is them breaking in to the court. I mean, these are scenes like January 6th, but they're much more significant because no one's being punished here. And there's a clear call to overthrow the army leadership. They're not protesting a stolen election. They're protesting soldiers being punished for raping non-Jews. And so we can clearly see what the future of Israel is all about, but also how unstable Israel is, because this all occurred after an incident we'll get into next of a missile striking Majd al-Shams in occupied Syrian territory in the Golan Heights, Israeli-occupied Syrian territory. And it actually postponed Israel's preparation to attack Hezbollah and initiate a wider campaign against southern Lebanon, because the security risk to Israel from the future of Israel's political class was so severe, and the military was so threatened by these pro-rape insurrectionist riots. And so we see Zionism eating itself alive. There's nothing to say about this except that this emanates from the ideology of Zionism, which preaches that Jews are fundamentally superior to everyone else in historic Palestine, if not the world, and that their lives are the only lives that matter. What kind of leadership do you expect to rise with such an overarching ideology dominating every institution of Israeli life?
Yeah, and that they have a divine claim to the land, that God promised it to them, so therefore they can take any measure possible to expand their control of it. I mean, it's straight up religious fundamentalism, and it's all the more dangerous because we're not just talking about a fringe movement. This is now basically the mainstream of society at the highest levels of government. And as I said recently when I was on Piers Morgan debating to Zionist propagandists, this is a society that needs to be de-radicalized. I mean, for its own sake, but for the world's sake too, because they have nuclear weapons. I mean, like there's no movement that is where radicalization is as mainstream and powerful as Zionism right now. It's not even close. I mean, there are a lot of Christian fundamentalists in power in the US, but in terms of like the level of extremism and the threat they pose to not just the region, but the world, Israel is just far in the lead. And so how will they be de-radicalized? I don't know the answer, but they need to be for everyone's sake.
And therefore they need to be demilitarized, because the radicalism emerges from the military, but it also emerges from the Messianic institutions, which are seeking control. You can see they're trying to take control over the military through this incident, and it won't be the end. This incident is a harbinger of what is to come if and when there is a ceasefire. And it's why I think there cannot be a real ceasefire, because Netanyahu sees the writing on the wall. Netanyahu, in a way, is rational. He's messianic because he has to appeal to the messianic future of Israel. And in a way, he's sort of personally messianic because he has narcissistic personality disorder. He's willing to lie, and maybe he believes his lies to some extent, but he also understands what kind of danger, not just he, but the state of Israel as a putative Jewish and democratic state is in. Once there's a ceasefire, if there's a ceasefire, those elements are going to go crazy across the state. They're going to rampage, and there will be a civil war. And if anyone attempts to take Netanyahu's place, like Benny Gantz, they will be basically a US-backed regime that will have no support from the streets, and especially from the settlements, who really are the most dynamic and violent political force in Israel. So we're just witnessing a microcosm of what's to come if there's a ceasefire. That's why Netanyahu has actually said we need to live life on the sword, something that Ben Gvir and Smotrich, the fanatics in his coalition, are eager to enjoy. And, you know, Christian Zionists call it the Battle of Gog and Magog. They think this is revelation. So there are a lot of people pushing for sort of permanent war. And then like, look at how this incident is being played, is playing out in Israeli media. The wife of the rapist Israeli soldier has come out and said that she basically celebrates what her husband did. The wife of one of the suspects of abusing a terrorist. This is a murderer. What do I care about his ass? I see the cry of the fighters, and that's what I'm looking at. She said that both she and her husband feel threatened and stated it's nothing. It's about politics. So she's standing by her man after her man sodomized another man who is a defenseless prisoner. How many women would do that if they, I mean, like, I mean, I understand, you know, you stand by your man because he, whatever, you know, everybody has problems in their marriage. They have an affair. Not everybody goes out and rapes male prisoners and then brags about it and celebrates it, has people riot in their defense, and you stand by him. I mean, you have to be so far gone and so psychotic and so indoctrinated to think that. And this is the future of Israel.
And, you know, this dynamic you're talking about, where basically Israel's become so extreme that an internal strife is inevitable. It's not even that new, because look what happened to Yitzhak Rabin back in the 1990s. He was assassinated by an extremist settler who was ginned up by people like Benjamin Netanyahu, because the Netanyahu camp felt as if Rabin was giving away too much land to the Palestinians as part of the fake Oslo peace process, when in reality, the Oslo peace process was actually just a excuse or a ruse to take over more Palestinian land, giving them some scraps and pretending as if that's a Palestinian state. But for extremist Israelis, even that act was too much. It was too much of a surrender to Palestinians. So they killed Yitzhak Rabin over it. So even someone like Yitzhak Rabin, who was serving the process of colonization, the country was so, this is 30 years ago now. The country was so extreme that even he was killed. And Yitzhak Rabin's wife blamed Netanyahu for his murder. So this is a process that's been going on for a very, very long time.
This is a Netanyahu marching in front of a mock coffin for Yitzhak Rabin during a rally against the Oslo Accords. And as you said, he was heavily involved in inciting Rabin's killing. Netanyahu has always used assassination as a political tool. It's one of the main tools in his toolbox, along with the state of Israel, even killing his Jewish rivals who were no friends of Palestinians.
I mean, like right before Rabin was killed, he gave a speech saying that, you know, there will never be a Palestinian state. We're just doing this so we can basically get the Palestinian Authority to handle security for us. And we're going to keep the major settlement blocks. And if we give Palestinians limited autonomy, we're not going to have to worry about human rights groups complaining about our abuse of Palestinians. So Rabin was basically advancing a neo-colonial project, but the country is so extreme, they couldn't even tolerate that because they wanted to basically have full control over every square inch of land, not even grant Palestinians some nominal control in a small slice of territory.